Jeremy, thank you for accepting People Helping People invitation prepared by Access Link Consulting. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here today with us.
Oh, I appreciate that, Rami. Thank you.
To start with, can you tell us about your background and how you came to be in this leadership position as an advocate within the accessibility sector?
Yeah, sure. I've been formally working in the sector about 25 years, but when I was 13, my dad was employed to help people with disability in a lawn mowing business. And we used to go and help for the school holidays. We were taught very early about difference and that we shouldn't focus on that. We look for similarities, we look to build a relationship, we treat people as people. And so I think as an early interaction, as an early teenager, I learned a valuable lesson in human rights. My parents were Salvation Army officers, so they were running a church for the first 20 years of my life. And in the Salvation Army, its whole at its core is about mission, is about how to actually help people in the community, how do we fight for social justice, look out for those who are poor, destitute, people with disabilities, etc. So for me, it was who I am, part of my DNA. And so I started working in group homes very quickly, went up the ranks into leadership roles. Probably about 10 years ago, I got stuck. I went, there's lots of business people in the sector, and there's lots of people like me in the sector who are passionate about disabilities with no qualifications. I put myself through an MBA, and I wanted there to be, there needed to be someone in the industry that had both an understanding of disability, an understanding of social justice, but was able to overlay that with business acumen as well. So completed my MBA, I think 3 months before my 40th birthday, and has just slowly worked into that role of supporting people with significant functional impairments, people that have significant psychosocial disabilities, and from there, I still felt restrained because I went, I can do more. And I think the opportunity with SDAA Alliance was, I now have an opportunity from a governance perspective and from a systemic advocacy of connecting with the NDIA, the NDIS Safeguards Commission, to look at how we can make a difference from a sector. I don't see us as only 6% of the sector is people that are living in SDAA homes. I see it as the NDIS's most vulnerable people needing support, needing advocacy, and yeah, that's where it started for me.
Great, and I'm very glad to hear about you and about your background as well. So could you please tell us more about SDAA along with its goals and what is your current role within the organisation?
Yeah, sure, thank you. So the SDAA Alliance has been operating for 5.5 years. It's a peak body, a membership body. We don't have government funding, it's all member-based and sponsorship. So currently we have 70 members of the SDAA Alliance. That ranges from institutional investors, it can be developers, SDA providers, and then we have access consultants, OTs, and others that help around that support as well. So what I love about the Alliance is it's really a holistic look of the life cycle of SDA, and there's a lot of people that are in the industry not only to make a modest return, but to make a significant difference. And what we do as a peak body is we're a strong advocate for new build SDA, and everyone should have the right to live in suitable accommodation. We know currently, the last 30 or so years post boarding houses closures and mental health hospital closures, that we really have just replicated and copied what was always been. And I think the group home model that it is now around 30 years old is finished and should be finished. And what's encouraging is we have a desire as a sector to innovate and really look for different ways to challenge how we can use architecture, how we can use land, how we can use the SDA rules to build some really exciting, really beautiful homes. The principles that we work on are active collaboration. So it's around how do we work together as a membership, how do we work together with the NDIS and the NDIA and the government of the time, and how do we work with other advocates and people in the sector. And we're a little bit different where we try not to get overly passionate. We want to be polite, we want to be direct, but we come not with anger, we come with a sense of how can we help solve a problem? Can we suggest some options? Here's some data we've collected. The other one that we work around is maximising choice and control. And a big thing for the SDA Alliance is people with disability have often, choice and control has been an afterthought. And having a person I've got a child with a disability, and I've had to learn that she's an adult now, that she can make her own decisions, that and make choices that are relevant and important to her. And I think that's something that's often lost in the disability sector. And so we want to champion that people with disability and their families can get what they want, and our job should be to articulate that to our members, to the NDIA, to the NDIS, and through the paper's position statements that we write. And finally, we talk about innovation and excellence. And we don't just want to be an SDA peak body, we want to be an SDA best practice peak body. And we want to be above the SDA rules. We see that as a minimum standard. We see the design standards as a minimum standard. And so how can and what can we do to make sure that we continually innovate, we look for new ways to build homes, we look and challenge some of the thinking around the SDA rules and design standards, and we go, how do we get the best outcome for participants, but also how do we make sure that our members, because they do invest in the scheme and it's based on institutional investment and external money coming in, how do we turn a modest profit so that we can be in the industry and be an active player?
Great mission and great fundamentals, and I think that's what encouraged us to be as a supporter for SDAA. So we're definitely supporting this mission and its values. We know that SDAA is the main body that sits at the front line with NDIS. So how does SDAA advocate for the needs of the SIL providers, NDIS, SDA providers, participants to the NDIS, and also what added value does it offer?
Okay. I think what we do is we establish relationships and strong relationships with the NDIA Home and Living team and the NDIS Quality and Safeguards Commission. So it was very clear when I started in my role that we needed to actively collaborate and regularly connect with those governing bodies. And what I've found is through our regular monthly meetings, we've learnt to understand what my role is, what the SDA Alliance's role is, what our members stand for. And from that, there's been a level of trust. And through trust, through clear communication and advocacy, we can start to make some change through elements of what we do. So what we try and do is a few things. We work with the NDIS, Safeguards Commission, the ACCC, and we report on providers that don't live up to that standard of meeting the SDA rules, the design standards, or investors that might be placing people at risk. We report monthly to make sure that we can highlight and remove people from the industry that shouldn't be there. Then we advocate for our members around how can we fix the systemic issues around payments, and so that we've worked with a solution-focused mindset around payments, which meant we had to talk to our members, work out what some of the roadblocks were and how do we fix that. We're in the process of we've just released a terms of reference for the design standard, so we've tried to preempt the design standard review and inform the NDIA on what we as a peak body would prefer in some of those changes. And then we focused on position statements, so we've written statements on tax exemption, we've written statements on the separation of service delivery and housing. We want to make sure that we inform government on who and what we are. We're days away from releasing a best practice guide, which the NDIA, the NDIS asked for. The other thing we're doing is we acknowledge that the SDA rules and the price guides aren't ready for renewal yet, but we are providing examples and so working with members around what is good design, what are the roadblocks, where do we have issues with consistency or approval, how can we respectfully challenge or look at problems differently to get the best outcome for our members and our participants. Over the next 6 to 12 months, we will be working with our members around developing a tick of approval, which is we want to be able to evidence what best practice is in the sector. And best practice isn't going through an audit process, it isn't meeting all of the rules and regulations. It's actually living and breathing our fundamental principles, and it's also going, how can we do better? How can we show the community that people with disability deserve good housing, that we can demonstrate to government what good design is, and also how do we inform that the right type of investment into the scheme will get the best benefits and outcomes for people with disability.
So from that, what do you see as the most significant challenges facing NDIS SDA market today?
Yeah. So some of the challenges are, one of them is that is obtaining clean data. So understanding what is in the market at the moment. So how many houses are in the market, how many people with SDA approval are in the market, are they in state-owned stock or are they living in a SIL property? And some of the difficulty is the data also includes some poor providers that are building in undesirable areas. And those homes, unfortunately, are empty or have a large amount of vacancies and still are part of the government data set. And so somehow we've got to inform the NDIA and the NDIS and clean that data up to show there's a significant demand in metro, or there's a demand in a particular type of SDA provision, for example, robust builds. We've seen a decline over the last 8/4 of robust builds, although it can take days to get the right person to understand and interpret the data that's available. So that's one element that we've got to work through. I think the other element is about truly listening. So I've been on the road the last 8 weeks, so I've got another 4 or 5 weeks to go, and the important component of being on the road is not to showcase who the SDAA Alliance is or who I am. It's about listening to success stories, having time with participants. So I met a participant last week who was living in a basement of their parents' bedroom as an elderly adult, and had the opportunity with SDAA to go back into community and live in their own villa. And their comment was, without SDAA approval, I wouldn't be here anymore. And the significance of that statement is striking. And I've been able to hear success, I've been able to hear frustration, and a lot of those conversations help me work through what do I need to focus on next around our advocacy to government. Where do we need to put our energy in? Is there collective things that are roadblocks for our members, and then what is the best way to fix that? And I found that open communication and relationship help, sharing of information. So we've, as a membership, we do 2 things. We share internal documents. Now, over the last 8 weeks, I think we've shared 16 e-bulletins and 3 or 4 significant papers with our members. But we also share our papers with the sector and with government and the NDIS and the NDIA, because best practice should be bigger than the SDAA Alliance. Best practice is sector-wide, and we should take that seriously, that position, because we want best practice SDA well beyond our reach and our membership, because that's what the scheme needs to survive, but also that's what participants deserve.
So in your opinion, what sort of the most important aspects of the NDIS and SDA needs improvement? And also, do you believe that government reforms are required?
So government reform is definitely required. We need the bill to be passed so that we can start doing work. Without the NDIS bill, true co-design, true collaboration can't happen. And I'm probably a minority for saying that, but truly believe that the government is being genuine in their desire to want to move forward and create a better space for people with disability. And I found that in my life as an NDIS participant, my daughter's life as an NDIS participant. Although it's difficult and hard to navigate, there's a genuineness there to want to help people with disability that genuinely need it. I think from a sector perspective, the SDA design standards are probably number one that we need to work through. They're outdated, they should have been reviewed last year, and the categories don't work at the moment. Improved livability, no one wants to build at the moment because there's so much ambiguity about what is going to happen next there. For that category. I think for fully accessible high physical support, it actually is quite comfortable there at the moment, because you can build and leverage with good design. You can help participants in both areas. One of the biggest concerns is robust builds. As I said before, we're seeing a reduction in robust builds. There's a higher risk both on the SDA provider and the NDIA with robust builds, and there needs to be some healthy debate on what robust should be. The SDA design standards are silent on a lot of areas that would make, and if the time was taken to explain the difference with the type of walls that were needed in an SDA home and what kitchen would work and how do you put a reinforced door on that won't need to be replaced in 3 months' time, I think understanding what should a minimum data set of a robust build be. The difficulty with robust is often people are placed in robust housing as an emergency, but when you need to build a robust house, it takes 2 to 3 years to build. And so I think we've got to learn to go, what is the minimum data set? How can we make a home safe and standard so someone can move in straight away? And then what do we do to scale that up if someone needs additional needs? The other component is the SDA rules. And the SDA rules are still a couple years away from needing a formal update, but they definitely need clarification and some internal working documents. Unfortunately, there's been confusion and complexity from an access consultant's perspective and an agency perspective on who makes what decision, who approves in what element, and it's not consistent. And I think some of the difficulty is people that have had someone like your services, Rami, might find it easier to navigate some of the complexities where a smaller provider that's tried to build a fantastic house but hasn't been able to articulate some of that, the detail around the design is often stumped. Yeah. And I think so. I would love it if we got SDA rules rewritten early. There's needs to be some work around state-owned stock, so legacy stock and participants with basic funding at the moment, and that will be a significant piece of work and a piece of work that will probably take 5 to 10 years to work through and needs a cash injection greater than the investment that's available in Australia at the moment. So I think that's some of the key areas.
Yeah, definitely. We spoke about that before, and on different occasions about specifically the robust design category and how there are a lot of gaps to close. I'm talking from design point of view now, because the current SDA design standard is very grey area where there is no specific and clear requirements for fixture, fittings, appliances, and also the design for the robust buildings. As discussed before as well, like when you have design standard that allows you to have 3 participants or 4 participants under the same roof for robust, that doesn't allow proper safety measures because the design doesn't cover it. So we're hoping to work as well with SDAA and yourself as well to try to get our voice and word there to NDIS and SDA to develop their standards in the near future.
Yeah, I agree. I think being vague and being able to be interpreted has caused a lot of problems. The difficulty is if we're too prescriptive, it will cause more problems. So it's finding out what areas do we find that middle ground. And I agree that people that have got skin in the game like yourself and the Alliance and other members, we can help inform, we can provide good architectural detail, we can do complex costings, we're able to demonstrate what it would be like to operate as an SDA provider. The other concept that isn't there yet, that is a to-do for me, is we need to work in partnership with service delivery as well, because without a strong relationship with the parties that deliver direct support, I don't think the significant you miss the amazing design and the practicality of the builds as well. And so I think if we can help inform the sector on what good design looks like, what good assistive technology looks like, how you navigate some of the complexities through amazing tech, and if that's right, in theory a participant's plan should reduce or could be diverted elsewhere. And that's a difficult thing to say. I also agree with you that the 3 to 4 bedroom robust needs a rethink. And if we've got to build to that size, we've got to think of how do we build breakout rooms, and how do we build protections there?
Proper separation.
And proper separation, because what breaks my heart in the traditional group home setting is often people are forced to be there because there was no other place. There's elements of participant matching that often was done with good intent, but maybe not as robust as I would have liked. And sometimes the complexity of people's psychosocial disability or intellectual disability just doesn't match, or it aggravates other people in the house. And it doesn't mean everyone needs to live in a villa. It doesn't mean that we've got to build these amazing houses and add additional capital expense. But it means that we've got to think through a new generation of design, because good design still with complex care will reduce support needs.
Yeah.
But it's about informing service delivery, informing the government, the agency, that it's possible, and working with academics that have proven this already, proper research and partnering and demonstrating our designs, our statements with back to research. This is where we need to go.
I completely agree with you. So how do you think Access Link Consulting is adding value to SDAA Alliance Group?
Look, I think, Rami, for me, it's your longevity in the sector. I think that can't be underestimated, that you don't come from, you haven't, with respect, done a short course and you're doing the job and starting your company. You come with architectural background, skin in the game, and you actually work on some of the most complex problems for a lot of our members and other people in the sector to go, how do we actually progress and move through to get good design, a good house to work for participants and organisations. And where I see benefit is, one, you're delivering benefit through relationships you have with members, because it means that they're building homes, which means more people with disability have somewhere to live. But two, there's an amazing opportunity to collaborate. The industry knowledge, your organisation, the ability to interpret the SDA rules, the design standards from an academic level far surpasses a lot of the members we have at the moment. So you become an asset of an SME in that space that can help inform and help with our solution focus, because what I don't like doing is going to government and saying we've got a problem, fix it. What I prefer to do is go, members, Access Link, have you got an idea? Can we chew the fat and figure something out? I see it as you serve as advocates for accessibility in design and consultation. I see that as an important thing, that you want to be an advocate for good quality design. And if that happens, participants' needs get met. And for me, if I was to dream more, it's around how do we collaborate on position statements, on papers, What do we do to highlight some of the good work that's happening? And there's elements of partnership with NDIA, NDIS to help understand the sector. And I think through my travels and meeting with members over the last 6 months, that's been a key issue, is how do people think, who are trusted in the industry, who do you go to when you've got a problem? And what's been comforting is that your name and your organisation come up in those conversations. And so I think that that's a very important part of why Access Consulting is part of the Alliance.
Thank you, Jeremy. And our support, collaboration and assistance in any possible way we can offer is always there to bring better standards, not only the current standard but also best practice as well, and implement it for the benefits for the participants and the end users as well. How does the philosophy of people helping people influence your work, and what do you find most rewarding about your role?
So people helping people is all I know how to do. Without connection, collaboration, without shared ideas, without alternate opinion, without encouragement, life's pretty boring. And it's, so for me, if you don't engage with people, connect, if you don't truly want to see what can be if there's a partnership, I often go, that's a pretty lonely place to live in. And for me, we can't do that, particularly when we're supporting the most vulnerable people in Australia, and we want them to have just the basic human rights, which is a home and shelter, and we don't even do that properly some of the time. And I think people helping people, if we have that philosophy, I think it's easier to come into a space and truly advocate for best practice, for a change of policy, to demonstrate what good is and also articulate what it isn't as well, and highlight to government when things go wrong. I think people helping people, we need to sometimes get over the fear of sharing knowledge. IP is important to a lot of people, and there's elements where, as the Alliance, we won't share some letters that we write with Minister Shorten, or we write a paper just for internal members only. But if you only stay in your lane and you don't actually talk to people about who you are, people actually don't see you, and you don't have, they won't hear you. You don't have an opportunity to make a difference and be a difference in the sector. I see my role is all about collaboration. It's all about the power of collaboration and being together. And it energises me hearing someone's story. It energises me when someone has spent 6 years on a doctorate on a design element that will help someone with a disability improve their quality of life. I get excited when I see a design of a home that means that a support worker no longer needs to be within a couple metres of someone, but can go away, and this person actually can have a free and independent life and still be safe. I think that's some of the things that I think can be done through people helping people. For me, I like to give people permission to dream. And that, when people are allowed to think what could be, when there's no barrier and there's no negative reward for just having a conversation, having an idea, I think that's when sometimes you get your best work. And that's, again, something that I get really excited about, because I learn every time I leave the door, hop in my car and have a coffee with someone. I learn when I turn Zoom on and I talk. And without that, you become insular, you become cold, you get tunnel vision and direct. And that's not who we should be as advocates in the sector. It's not who we should be as SDA Alliance or our members. For me, work can be a transaction, and that's cold, it's nasty, and I think working in a peak body, working in a consultancy firm like yourself, transactions shouldn't be what we do. It's a relationship. But when we actually think about how do we come together collectively with a common purpose, with a common goal, and how do we move forward together, I think that's where we start making a difference.
Jeramy, it's absolutely amazing words, and that's what encouraged me to be part of SDAA as well when we first met, and you interviewed me as well. And I believe the mission and values you adding to SDAA is amazing. And I think and I strongly believe that all the members I know, they support your vision, and they will be collaborating with SDAA to the better always. I really appreciate your time today, and we definitely gonna be a big supporter for yourself and SDAA for the future.
Yeah, thank you, Rami. I think opportunities like today just it excites me to show that there actually is people in the sector that genuinely want to do good and make a difference. And I see that every day in the work access consultancy does. You come together, you work with significant problems, you go, how do I fix it? How do we collaborate? How do we work together? And that's what I've been encouraged with people helping people as well, is that you're not just looking singular into one narrow field. You're going, how do we collectively help with different minds and different areas of expertise, different focuses and different beliefs and thinking, and that enriches our conversation, it enriches work, and enriches what we do. So thank you.
Thanks to you, Jeramy. I appreciate it.